and Grandpa. Let's wander back into the past, then paint me the picture of long ago.
Welcome back to another episode of History of Hill Farms. So we're adding a new character here today, our newest dog here in the farm, Teddy. So where do we leave off? I guess we were talking about the new tree on the market, the Douglas fir. Everyone was raising Scotch pine and Norway spruce, and Uncle Bus comes up with this crazy idea. Not only does he have a new industry, but he decides he's going to raise a whole different tree than everybody else. So what was he thinking when he came up with that idea?
Well, he heard about the Douglas fir, and at that time there was absolutely no disease on Douglas fir, for one thing. That was an interesting thing, and he liked the sound of the tree. But of course everybody told him, that thing isn't going to grow around here. That's a West Coast tree. You're wasting your time. So that's where it was. He put them in the ground and they thrived. So
do you have any idea where he even came up with that idea? Where did he
I don't know where he ever got the idea of getting Douglas fir.
But no one around here was really this.
But he would come up with those ideas periodically. He'd always come up with something that was sort of ahead of the industry. That was the type of guy he was, you know. He was.
So how'd that work out? A new product?
Well, when he first got them, and this is after he came home now from the South Pacific, he had to beg people to try the tree. They were still into balsam fir, and they were into spruce, and
right.
And once people and the pine, but once people got a taste of the thing, it only took like a year, and then it took off. I mean, people really wanted them. We didn't even have enough.
So when the first trees were really sold, from the research I've done, it was a lot of smaller trees and skinny trees and stuff like that.
Right,
they're coming out of the woods. They weren't the nicest looking trees.
Yeah, they
so
weren't very nice.
I would imagine, what people got, what the farmers got for the trees, the price that they were able to get. I mean, we're talking, this is still the Depression in the late 30s, so they couldn't have possibly got much for the trees. So how did it possibly work out?
I really got like $1.50 for I think that's what we got for a Douglas fir to start. If they were dug, we got a little bit more for them, but we didn't want to be into the digging business, or he didn't want to be in the digging business, and the first trees were very cheap, $1.50, $2 a tree.
Yeah, it doesn't sound like a lot of money, but compared to other crops, they were cheap also.
Well,
so everything, it's all relative to the time.
It's all relative to the times, right?
Yeah, so it's tough to take gambles. When we think of what we get for trees today,
Right.
but everything is more expensive today than what it used to be. So
well, the times are what made it tough in the 40s for him too. The really toughest part was that Uncle Bus had to resign his commission to keep his job. But then, of course, he got drafted. He knew he'd be drafted.
So he resigned his commission. He was in the National Guard.
He was in the National Guard. He was in one of the governors. He was one of the guys that guarded the governor.
So he probably got in the National Guard looking for extra money, maybe.
Extra money, right. And it was quite an honor because he was a horseman. And there was a select few of these guys.
So he got in the National Guard, and then he was selected out of the National Guard to guard the governor?
To be a governor's guard.
Okay.
Right? He got the honor of that.
And what exactly
they
was
had
that?
to be like 6'2", 6'3", a little over 200 pounds, lean, and
yeah, I remember seeing pictures.
Beautiful uniforms they had. They were really fancy.
Let's see if we can find that picture, but it really impressive.
But he had to get out of that, and he knew he wasn't getting out of the military by doing it, except that the 28th Division was activated more quickly. And then he got drafted. He got in about 42, and instead of going to Europe, where he was lucky, because those guard officers in the 28th Division, which he was in, everybody from rank of captain down to lieutenant, not one of them came out of the Hurtgen Forest without even being wounded or killed. That's how bad it was.
So really, the way this really came about is he resigned his commission not because he was trying to avoid his service.
He wanted
did
to
it
keep
because
his job.
Keep his job. And at that time, having a job it was really hard to keep a job.
That was really important to him.
So there never was any thought here. If you ever knew Uncle
he
Buzz,
wasn't
there never
trying
any
to
thought
avoid
that he was
service,
trying to get around anything. It was
in
just.
fact, he probably would have volunteered, except that he was married and he didn't want to lose his job.
So really, at that point, we were talking late 30s. The mood of the country. A lot of people didn't think that we were going to get involved in this world war, so it wasn't even a case then at that point.
Well, they were starting to realize it. That's when he had to resign because his boss came to Hitler had invaded Rhineland and he also invaded Austria at that time. And the signs of World War II were quite obvious. So that was one of the reasons he had to. Now, he did get called in, and then he was actually, his rank was a corporal, but they made him an acting major. He had a bar. He had the major's insignia and everything. Even though he was only a corporal, he was a fake major.
Right. So he was enlisted or drafted when he went
was
back
drafted.
in. He was drafted
He was
back
drafted.
in. So that would have okay. So we leave the Great Depression. That was the end of that era, and we come into the World War II era. So he gets drafted. Now, how are you possibly going to keep a farm going if you're halfway across the world?
Well, he was fortunate that Joe Gerhardt was deferred because of his job and also his age. He was older. He was close to 38 years old, and of course they weren't 38 on up. They weren't taking you.
Right.
And this was early in the war, so he wouldn't even been in consideration at that time. But he kept the thing pretty well going.
So he was able to keep it
But
going.
he became
while
ill
the bus
during
was-
that time
was
also.
gone. Yeah. So that's really if it would have been another young man that Uncle Bus was partnered with, there was a good chance that this would have just grown wild. There wouldn't have been anyone here to take care of it.
That's true.
Because the young men were being drafted in record numbers, and Christmas trees not
Right,
being
there
an
wouldn't have
essential
been
crop
anyone-
like food was.
Right.
That could have been the end right there before
Well, they
we ever
didn't
got
care
going.
for them like we do now either. The trees were pretty well left going. They'd shear them a little bit, and
Right.
the grass was pretty well left go.
Well, it was an upcoming industry at that time.
They
and I
didn't
guess
know what to do, right?
Yeah, so we were still learning a lot of things. So,
Right.
we'll end this session at this point here. Your Uncle Bus was drafted. I know I promised you to talk about cruising the South Pacific, so we're gonna pick that up in our next episode. So tune back in to find out where we go from here. We hope you enjoy our series, The History of Hill Farms. If you have any questions about anything that you've seen in the video, please post a question in the comments section, and we'll try to get back to you. Also, if there's anything you'd like to see in future episodes, please let us know. Thanks a lot.
Grandpa, tell me about the good old days.